Have you ever wondered why some people seem to make money online every day, almost effortlessly, while most keep trying, failing, and starting from scratch repeatedly? It seems like there's something hidden, a detail that nobody really explains. And maybe that's exactly the point. What you're about to discover might surprise you, especially if you've already tried to find ways to earn extra income online and felt like you were always one step behind. The truth is, while many people are chasing complicated methods, elaborate strategies, or get-rich-quick schemes, there's a much simpler, almost invisible path working silently behind the scenes. A method that doesn't depend on luck, doesn't require you to be an expert, and certainly doesn't require you to have thousands of followers on social media. And the most curious thing, it can start generating consistent results, day after day, without needing your constant presence. Now tell me, have you ever been through this? Have you ever found yourself researching ways to make money online, watching videos, saving ideas, but in the end, never managed to turn it into something real? Or worse, you even tried to put something into practice, but gave up because it seemed too complicated or took too long to produce results. If this has happened to you, know that you are not alone, and there is a very clear reason for it. The problem isn't a lack of opportunities. It's never been easier to build an online income stream than it is today. The real problem lies in how these opportunities are presented. Most people are being steered towards noisy, saturated, and extremely competitive paths where you need to be constantly visible, invest money you often don't even have, and still deal with the frustration of inconsistent results. And that's exactly why so many people give up before even seeing any return. But what if I told you there's a completely different alternative? A smarter, more strategic model that works even when you're not actively working. Something that's a perfect fit for those who want to start from scratch. Build a financial growth mindset and develop a solid online income without relying on fleeting trends. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to understand here can completely change the way you see money, the internet, and wealth building. It's not about magic formulas or unrealistic promises. It's about understanding a simple yet extremely powerful mechanism that ordinary people use every day to create a steady source of income, even if no one is openly talking about it. And the most interesting thing is that this method is called silent for a very specific reason. It doesn't attract attention. It doesn't generate hype. It doesn't appear in the most viral videos. But it still continues to work every day, behind the scenes, generating real results for those who understand how to apply it correctly. Perhaps you've never heard of it in this way, or maybe you've already experienced something similar, but didn't realize the potential that existed there. In any case, what follows will show you exactly why this method is growing so much and why it can be much more accessible than you imagine. And it's precisely here that I want to include you in this conversation, because all of this only truly makes sense when you start to see yourself within this scenario. Perhaps some part of what I've said so far has sparked something in you, a doubt, a curiosity, or even that feeling of this could work for me. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has resonated with you the most so far. It could be an experience you've had trying to make money online, a difficulty you've been facing, or even what caught your attention most about this concept of the silent method. When you share this, it's not just a casual comment. You end up helping other people who are going through the same situation and often don't even have the courage to speak up. And I really do read these comments, because it's from them that I can better understand what you need and bring increasingly targeted, practical, and useful content to your reality. If you've ever felt lost amid so many promises on the internet, or tired of trying paths that lead nowhere, perhaps it's time to do things differently, starting with something simple, like connecting with content that truly adds value. If you're realizing that this kind of topic can open your mind and help you build an online income more intelligently, go ahead and like this video. It may seem small, but it makes a huge difference because it shows the platform that this content deserves to reach more people who also need to hear it. And if you want to continue learning about developing a financial growth mindset and discovering new ways to consistently earn money online, subscribe to the channel, because the idea here isn't just to show you possibilities, it's to guide you through this process, step by step, clearly, and without beating around the bush. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content. And, ultimately, the more people who understand these strategies, the greater the impact we create together. Now, with that in mind, it makes even more sense for us to move forward, because the next step is precisely to understand how this silent method works in practice and why it's so different from anything you've probably seen before. Today, now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a hidden truth that few people realize in this journey of trying to make money online. Most people don't fail because of a lack of effort, but because they're making decisions based on a model that's misaligned with reality from the start. It's like entering a game without understanding the rules and still blaming yourself for not winning. This generates frustration, breaks confidence, and causes many people to give up before seeing any real transformation. Perhaps you've already experienced this firsthand. The feeling of always being busy, consuming content, trying to apply strategies, but without seeing a concrete impact on your financial results. And Over time, this starts to affect not only your wallet, but also your mindset. You begin to doubt whether you are truly capable, whether it really works, or if it's just another empty promise circulating out there. But here's an important point that completely changes the game. It's not about doing more, it's about doing it right. There's a pattern behind the scenes of people who manage to generate income consistently. And that pattern has nothing to do with luck or excessive exposure. It has to do with direction, clarity, and especially understanding where to put your energy so that it truly generates a return. And when you start to see that, something changes inside. You move out of the aimless trial and error mode and begin to act with more intention, more awareness. This not only improves your results, but also brings a different feeling, as if the pieces are finally starting to fit together within your own journey. Because ultimately, what's at stake here isn't just money. It's freedom, it's choice. It's the possibility of building something that works for you, without depending on saturated paths or formulas that don't make sense for your reality. And maybe, just maybe, this is the turning point you were looking for without even realizing it. If this made sense to you so far, comment below. I'm starting to understand. And now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because everything I'm showing you didn't come from loose theory or pretty internet promises. It came from observing real patterns behind the scenes. For a long time, I was also stuck in that common cycle, consuming content, testing random things, and not understanding why some people progressed while others remained stuck in the same place. And it was precisely in this process that I began to notice something different, almost invisible, but extremely powerful. What caught my attention wasn't the exaggerated success stories, but rather the ordinary people, those who didn't appear as often, who weren't constantly trying to go viral, but who nevertheless managed to generate a steady income. This sparked a genuine curiosity in me. What kind of decisions were these people making? What was the mindset behind it? And, most importantly, what were they doing that most people simply ignored? That's when things started to make sense. Because when you cut through the noise and start to observe more clearly, you realize there's a logic behind this construction. It's not luck, it's not magic. It's a set of well-positioned choices, repeated over time, that generate a cumulative impact. And that's one of the great revelations that completely changes how you see this journey. And I'm not saying this from a distant place, like someone who discovered everything. Quite the opposite. I'm sharing this as someone who also went through the process, who also had doubts, who also needed to adjust course several times until understanding what really works. Because ultimately, the difference isn't about who starts better, it's about who starts to see the game differently. And when that switch is flipped, everything changes. If this resonated with you in any way, comment below. I'm turning this into something else. Avani. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this is where the central point of this entire transformation comes in, the so-called silent method. And before you imagine something complicated or outside your reality, let me tell you, its strength lies precisely in its simplicity and the strategic way it happens behind the scenes. The silent method doesn't depend on external validation. It doesn't need applause or constant exposure. It works almost like an invisible system, where each small decision generates an accumulated effect over time. And that's the part that many people don't realize, because we're used to seeking quick, immediate, almost instantaneous results. But here the logic is different. Here, the focus is on building something that continues to work even when you're not looking. Think of it like planting something that grows continuously. At first, it seems like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface there's real movement going on. This is the kind of mindset that separates those who live in constant trial and error mode from those who begin to create real stability. And this shift isn't just technical, it's internal as well. It's a change in how you perceive effort, time, and results. The great hidden truth is that this method relies on intelligent consistency, not desperate effort. It's not about doing a lot, it's about doing what truly makes an impact. And when you start aligning your actions with this logic, your journey ceases to be confusing and becomes directionless. Everything starts to make more sense, including mistakes, because they become part of a process, not a sign of failure. And the most interesting thing is that, once you understand this mechanism, it becomes difficult to go back to the old model. Because you start to see opportunities where before, you only saw difficulties. You begin to make more conscious decisions, more aligned with real and sustainable growth. And it is precisely here that the most important revelations begin to emerge, because understanding the concept is only the first step. Applying it in the right way is what truly changes the game. If this opens your mind in any way, comment below. Now it makes sense. Sleep. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a critical point that holds most people back before they even begin to see any results. The limiting beliefs that have been built up over time, almost unconsciously. And here's one of the biggest revelations of this journey. Many of these ideas that you believe to be absolute truths simply aren't yours. They were absorbed, repeated, and reinforced by environments, experiences, and even content that confuses more than it helps. How many times have you thought you needed a lot of money to get started, or that you needed to be visible, charismatic, know how to sell perfectly, or even that all of that only works for those who are already ahead. These mental decisions shape your behavior, creating invisible barriers that prevent any kind of real transformation. And the most curious thing is that, while you believe this, you continue trying to move forward with a weight that shouldn't even be there. The hidden truth is that the silent method breaks exactly that pattern. It doesn't demand perfection, it doesn't demand exposure, and much less that you start with everything ready. It demands something much simpler, yet much more powerful, a willingness to see things differently and act with intention. And that completely changes the game, because when you clear those beliefs, you free up space to make decisions more aligned with what truly generates impact. It's as if you're looking at the same scenery, but through a new lens. What once seemed impossible begins to seem feasible. What once seemed confusing begins to gain clarity. And this doesn't happen by chance. It happens because you start taking control of your own journey, instead of following patterns that weren't made for you. And it is at this point that many people have that internal turning point, where they realize that perhaps it was never a lack of ability, but rather an excessive noise. If this changed the way you think, comment below. I'm breaking this PA draw now. I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding the concept is important, but seeing how it works in practice is what truly generates transformation. The silent method, in essence, revolves around creating a simple system that works for you behind the scenes, continuously connecting value with opportunity. It's not about a single isolated move, but about a structure that, once adjusted, begins to run almost automatically. It works more or less like this. You identify a real demand, something that people are already looking for, and strategically position a solution without relying on massive exposure. This solution can be linked to content, platforms, or mechanisms that remain active even when you're not present. This is where the real impact comes in. Because unlike the traditional model, where you trade time for money, here you build something that continues to generate results throughout your journey. And the most interesting thing is that all of this happens silently, without needing to directly convince anyone, without pressure, without that feeling of selling all the time. The process happens naturally, almost organically, because it's based on real people's behavior, not on pushing something that nobody wants. This logic completely changes the way you make decisions. Instead of testing anything, you start thinking in terms of building. Instead of seeking immediate results, you begin to see the value of the accumulated effect. And this, over time, creates a much more solid, much more predictable foundation. Behind the scenes, what's happening is simple, yet powerful, small, aligned actions generating big consequences over time. And when you realize this, you begin to understand why so many people are migrating to this type of approach. But there's one detail that makes all the difference between those who try and those who actually make it work. And that's exactly what begins to separate results from frustration. If this clarified your vision in any way, comment below. I'm seeing the J degree. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding the logic is only part of the journey. What truly begins to generate transformation is when you take the first steps with clarity. And here's one of the great revelations. You don't need a perfect plan, you need a functional starting point. The silent method begins precisely like this, with simple but strategic decisions that create movement behind the scenes. The first step isn't complex, but it requires attention. It's about stopping random consumption and starting to observe intentionally. What are people looking for? What problems frequently arise? This change in mindset completely alters how you see opportunities. Instead of looking for ways to make money, you start identifying where the money is already circulating. After that comes an even more important stage, positioning, not in the sense of showing up, but of being present in the right way. This can be through content, platforms, or structures that work even without your constant presence. Here, the focus is not on quantity, but on direction. Small, well-aligned actions begin to generate an impact that at first is almost invisible, but extremely real. And it is at this moment that many people get lost, because they expect quick validation. But the silent method doesn't respond to haste, it responds to intelligent consistency. Every decision you make now is building something bigger, even if it's not yet visible on the surface. Over time, these actions begin to connect. What once seemed isolated becomes part of a system. And that's when you start to realize you're no longer trying, you're building. And when you get into that rhythm, something changes inside you too. Your vision expands, your choices become more conscious, and your journey begins to gain real direction. If this gave you more clarity on where to start, comment below. I've already taken the first step. So now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because if there's something that truly sustains this method over time, it's not just the strategy. It's the mindset behind every decision you make. And here's one of the most ignored truths of this journey. Without a financial growth mindset, even the best method loses its power. Because it's not just about what you do, but about how you think while you do it. Most people still operate in an immediate gratification mode, seeking quick validation, instant returns, and visible results all the time. But the silent method demands a different approach. It requires vision. It demands the ability to understand that not all progress is visible at the beginning, but is still generating impact behind the scenes. And this completely changes how you deal with time, effort, and especially patience. Developing this mindset is like adjusting an internal lens. You begin to value consistency instead of momentary intensity. You start to see small actions as part of something bigger, and, little by little, your decisions cease to be impulsive and become strategic. This creates a cumulative effect that not only improves your results but also strengthens your confidence throughout the journey. There's a silent transformation happening here. You stop looking for shortcuts and start building your own path. You stop reacting to what comes along and start acting with intention. And this has a direct impact on how money begins to appear in your life, not as luck, but as a consequence of a well-structured process. And when that mindset takes hold, you realize you're no longer chasing after something. You're creating it. If this sparks something in you, comment below. I'm developing this mindset. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject because when you start to see it happening in practice, everything stops seeming like theory and takes on a completely different weight. And I'm not talking about unattainable stories or exceptional cases. I'm talking about ordinary people with normal routines who decided to adjust small things and, over time, began to see a real transformation happen. Imagine someone who started out exactly like you, not knowing where to go, trying random things without consistent results. At first, nothing seemed to change, but instead of giving up, this person decided to apply the basics intentionally. Even without immediate validation, they began to observe people's behavior more closely, made more strategic choices, and, most importantly, maintained consistency even when it seemed like it wasn't yielding results. Behind the scenes, something was already happening. Small signs began to appear, a result here, another there. Nothing explosive, but enough to show that there was a path. And that's exactly where most people fail, because they give up before that point. But those who persevere begin to see the accumulated effect. What seemed slow gains momentum. What was invisible begins to appear. And the most interesting thing is that this change doesn't just happen in the financial results. The mindset changes along with it. Decisions become clearer. Confidence grows, and the journey ceases to be based on trial and error and becomes guided by awareness and direction. This is the real proof that the silent method works. Not because it promises too much, but because it consistently delivers for those who understand the process. And when you find yourself in that situation, even if it's still the beginning, you realize that it's not far away. It's within reach. If you can imagine yourself going through this process, comment below. I can see myself in that. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a moment in the journey when everything starts to align, but only for those who decide not to turn back. And here's a point that few people talk about clearly. Time will pass anyway. The difference is what you build while it passes. That's the real urgency, not that artificial pressure, but the awareness that every decision you postpone today may be delaying a transformation that could already be underway. The silent method doesn't demand haste, but it does demand decisiveness. It doesn't require perfection, but it responds to consistency. And the sooner you understand this, the sooner you begin to reap the rewards of this choice. Because behind the scenes, while many remain trapped in the cycle of trying and giving up, there are people simply adjusting, applying, and moving forward. Without noise, without distraction, but with direction. There's an invisible line separating those who merely consume information from those who begin to build something real. And that line isn't about knowledge, it's about attitude. It's about that moment when you decide to take it seriously, even without immediate guarantees. Trusting the process and understanding that impact comes from accumulation, not from haste. This is the turning point. Not an external one, but an internal one. It's when you stop waiting for the perfect moment and start acting with what you have now. And, little by little, this choice begins to reflect in everything. In your mindset, in your decisions, and in the results that begin to emerge naturally. Because in the end, it's not about discovering something new. It's about applying what's already in front of you, in the right way. If this really made you think, comment below. I choose to act up, and if you've made it this far, you've probably already realized that this isn't just any old piece of content. It's a shift in perspective. It's the kind of conversation that, when you truly absorb it, begins to transform how you see money, decisions, and your own journey. If it makes sense to continue exploring this type of perspective, subscribe to the channel, because the idea here is precisely to delve deeper and deeper into this path. Bring in practical clarity and showing how to apply all of this in the real world. Without complication and without empty promises. And I really like knowing who truly follows through to the end, because it shows who is genuinely committed to this transformation. So, if you've made it this far with me, leave a comment saying, I'm with you until the end. That already creates a different kind of connection between us. And if this content gave you any insight, a turning point, or even that positive discomfort of wanting to do things differently, please like the video. It's a simple way to show that this type of message needs to reach more people who are also looking for something more solid. Now, There's a video over here that perfectly complements everything we've started building here. It will help you deepen this understanding even further and continue this process. So click on it and stay with me there.